Dave Littman, Truth in IT. Welcome to today's webcast, Avoiding Data Protection Pitfalls in Complex IT Environments. I am joined today by Sam Rogan. Sam is the Director of Solutions Marketing and Enablement with Arcserve. Hey, Sam, welcome.
Hi, David. How are you?
I'm well. And also Mike Matchett, who's Principal Analyst with Small World Big Data. Mike, welcome.
Hi, Dave. Great to be here.
All right, great to have you guys. A few housekeeping tips for our audience. We expect this webcast to go about between 30 and 40 minutes. You will notice a chat panel, so feel free to send in your questions. We'll be taking those at the end of the broadcast. So without further ado, let's get into it. So Sam, we're talking about complex environments. We're talking physical, virtual, multiple operating systems, the typical environments that a lot of our folks are dealing with, right?
Absolutely. And nowadays, the IT became much more complex. In so many places and so many things. The pace of changes is so fast. The rapid changes that include cloud as well as virtualization, de-virtualization, and many other things. There is the entire new population of IT guys, the young IT professionals who never carried a 50-pound server across the building to the third floor, never had to put it on the top shelf in the rack cabinet. They just do 3 clicks and provision the same server in a few seconds. The amount of changes is tremendous, but also businesses rely on IT so much that it becomes a challenge to keep up.
Yeah. Mike, any thoughts?
Yeah, I can remember the fact that we used to back up, a single server or a large server, and it was a nightly window process. So the thing ran during the day, it was busy, had a bunch of workloads on it. At night, we took it offline perhaps and backed it up and brought it back on. So you had a nightly window. And then we went to distributed client server environments. We went to virtualization, we went to other things, and backup became a real challenge to try to coordinate across everything. But in some ways it also got a little easier because we could back up bits and pieces at different times and schedule things. We didn't have this huge offline window. I know things are gotten more difficult, but what are some of the next generation stuff you guys are seeing out there in the market today that's really challenging people with data protection?
Well, the cloud is now biggest culprit. A lot of assumptions in the market, a lot of education yet to be done about how cloud and data protection and disaster recovery all work together hand in hand. This is all driven by the transformation of IT. We used to be all on premises. We're multi-cloud, and many things are easy to assume. This transformation drives the entire challenge. And it's not actually the first transformation we've seen. Similar challenges were when the virtual came in, right? Similar issues even came in the early 90s when the first generation of IT with all the Unixes and everything started to be replaced by PCs and servers and LAN and internet. All of this transformation create challenges for data protection. Assumptions are rampant. For example, for cloud, a lot of assumptions that the cloud is impenetrable and the data cannot be lost in it. We had recently a prospect on the phone talking to us saying, oh, cloud has 7 to 12 nines reliability. And it's maybe some clouds are, but definitely not the top 3 public cloud service providers. Their SLA is more like 1.5 nines or 2 nines. And another issue is that people assume the level of services and things that are happening in the cloud for them, like Office 365, also a great example. Microsoft protects data of companies in Office 365, and there are mechanisms, but there are things where Microsoft, as a vendor, draws the line, like any changes done by the employees, authorized employees of the company are the company's responsibility.
Okay. So when we talk about cloud reliability, that's not the same thing as protecting data. That's more of like what you're renting will be available to you in terms of what's a machine instance or a database instance. But there's a big difference in data. And one of the things we just talk about that multi-generational transformation. data. I mean, data is not the same as it used to be. We've got tons more of it with big data. We've got faster data, streaming data, got distributed data with IoT. So that must play a big part in what people have to think about now for modern data protection.
Absolutely. People need to think about data as a whole, everywhere it is. There is no difference whether your data is on premises, in physical systems, in virtual systems, or in SaaS, or is in infrastructure as a service. You need to protect it everywhere. If you don't, you're facing data loss risks. I already mentioned Office 365. A lot of companies are facing data loss risks with Office 365, not because of some incorrect configuration, but just because they assume things will be automatically backed up. Another risk is the downtime. Of course, we'll talk about downtime as well, but these risks have to be realized and addressed. If they are not, it's like 10 years ago when virtual came in, people thought that you don't need to back up virtual because there are snapshots, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing is happening now.
Wow. So, you know, and in downtime, you know, you talked about reliability in the cloud. Downtime, as you said, just isn't simply the unavailability of the instance that the service provider is talking about. Downtime can mean the data got corrupted, the application's stuck, hosed, crashed, but the instance is still running there. There's a lot of other things that go into uptime than simply having your cloud instance up, and people have to appreciate that most of that has to do with the data being available and with integrity, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, Sam, when you've got a heterogeneous environment, you could have multiple tools, right? Multiple data protection tools, and that's going to cause some issues.
Absolutely. And we see a lot of companies who identify those gaps and they try to protect both cloud and on-premises environments. And because many tools in the market are limited in their capabilities, they start to add multiple tools on top of each other, covering those gaps. But by doing this, they are increasing complexity. Significantly, you'll get multiple tools, management consoles, vendors, and everything becomes even more complex in already complex IT.
And I think, I mean, we could talk about little rules of thumb on that, but even if we have 80-20 and 80% is covered by one tool and I need another tool for another 20%, and then I divide that and I get and I end up with 4 or 5 tools. I think the complexity goes up with an n squared kind of relationship with the number of tools you add on there, not simply a linear complexity, right? Because every tool is going to interact with each other tool that's already there in some way, or has to be integrated or orchestrated with it. And I would guess, I mean, I don't know, you tell me, I would guess that most enterprises have 7 or more tools. What have you guys seen?
Well, we see the report that says 56% of companies have 2 or more.
2 or more, okay.
Right, and it's already 2 or more, right? You mentioned overheads, and there are fixed overheads. You need to contact the company, you need to get support, you need to procure the licenses, right? You need to create a PO and all the internal processes. Whether it's 80% of your backup or 20 or 10% of your backup, high chances these overheads will be the same, right? And going for more than one is always costly enterprise, and it will cost not just money, because of course there is no leverage or economy of scale, but it will cost time. And we all know in IT, time is more important than money.
Yeah, I mean, how do you automate an environment that's got a bunch of different tools and tools that are going to be patched at different versions and have different integration versions and things? Sounds like a pretty tough challenge. So, you know, we talked a couple pitfalls here. How do we start to think about avoiding these pitfalls? How do we start to dig out of this mess?
Well, the first step in solving any problem is admitting you have a problem. And as I already mentioned, education at this stage, in my opinion, is the biggest area where people just need to be educated not to take things for granted, right? And start protecting the data everywhere. Now, the next step is to avoid the complexity pitfall, where it would cost time and money not to go for unified solutions. So find the solution that protects as much or the entire infrastructure, or at least as much as possible for it. So you don't try to deal with multiple vendors, licenses, contracts, but even the interfaces. It can be a single vendor, but there could be 10 different unintegrated tools. Some of them will be command line even, and it will not solve the problem. So it should be a unified experience. That's what you would be looking at.
Yeah, I worked for a system management vendor for some 15 years, and there was probably 20 to 40 product lines over the time I worked for them, and they all had different administrative consoles, different user interfaces. There was never an ability to bring everything together into a platform user interface like people expected. They went to that, so that's really interesting. What can you sort of take as a next step then? Where do you go? What do you as Arcserve, what do you guys kind of come to people and say, hey, here's what you should be looking at?
Well, the solution is a complete integration. Full comprehensive data protection solution that protects all types of IT. And we'll talk about types of IT. It is all the generations. It's current cloud generation, it's on-premises, and still a lot of on-premises around there. But even those non-x86 machines, there is still Solaris around and HPUX that has the critical data, even if the system is legacy, 10 plus years old, there will be data that needs to be protected. So to take a holistic approach and understand how you want to protect everything, right? And at Arcserve, of course, for our 30-year history of protecting data since 1988, we have all the technologies required for historic system as well as for the cloud and everything in between, right? And that's why we have a solution that protects the entire IT infrastructures, whether it's non-x86, x86, SaaS, infrastructure as a service, anywhere, on-premises, remote systems, cloud. And of course, another angle to look at is integration of things like backup, disaster recovery, high availability, because it's not just two solutions of backup alone that can make your entire infrastructure complex, but also disaster recovery, failovers. If you have a critical applications, you need disaster recovery. You need high availability, even if the application is in the cloud. As you properly mentioned, if it's a software level, software tier issue, no public service provider for the public cloud will solve the issue for you. What they provide you is an infrastructure.
And you guys wrap this up when you're talking Arcserve, you're talking to your customers now. You're introducing this idea of a business continuity cloud, the Arcserve business continuity cloud. And by that, you really mean all the things you just said. It's unified, it's got backup, it's got DR, it handles high availability concerns and email archiving into unified stuff. So tell us just a little bit about what that means to you to bring that to market right now.
Well, it's a culmination of everything we were doing for 30 years.
Yeah.
That's as little as that. We were working on some of the technologies really for decades, and now bringing this under one common umbrella with a unified cloud-based management interface. What our focus is to help customers protect the entire IT and prevent IT disasters across all three IT generations. That's what we are focusing. When we say prevent IT disasters, we're not saying we cannot stop the hurricane or earthquake, of course.
But you have the DR so that you're resilient to those things, right?
Right. You can make it a non-event for IT. Yeah. Your application will fail over to another location, your systems will restart in the cloud, and you will have backup for all your data, you'll have disaster recovery for all your systems, you will have high availability for mission critical with near zero failover times and continuous data protection. And another area that is coming up really quickly is email archiving.
Yeah. And I'm sure we're going to come back into some technologies about that pretty soon. Maybe, I don't know, Dave, just for the folks who don't know, should we talk a little bit about, who Arcserve is?
Yeah, do you want to do that, Sam? You want to talk a little bit about the history and the partners and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. So Arcserve is just the world's most experienced provider of data protection. We were established in 1983 and delivered our first backup and data protection in 1988. Before any other data protection vendor right now live in the market. And throughout our 30+ year history, we're always protecting businesses. So our razor focus was always on protecting business data and making businesses work across the globe. We have customers now in more than 150 countries, non-profits, professional services, retail giants, governments, and pretty much everyone in between. And we work solely through partners. We have 7,500 partners worldwide, as well as alliances with all key companies like Amazon, Microsoft, HP, VMware, and more.
You know, Sam, I know I had given you a hard time at one point in the past about Arcserve starting in the world of tape. And you took me to school a little bit and said, hey, people still use tape. And you guys are one of those companies that has that span of experience and the span of products where you can still bring tape to the equation, do these petabyte level monster tape systems that really are, you know, some of the greatest places to back up and preserve offline material, as well as now get into the cloud. So I'm just amazed at that kind of legacy you guys can bring forward modern.
Yeah, absolutely. We embrace our experience and legacy. Tape is actually, to rephrase Mark Twain, news of tape demise were a little bit exaggerated.
Yeah.
The tape is still alive. I've just spoken last week with people from Ultrium Alliance and LTO Alliance, and they are very much excited about LTO 8 and LTO 9. And it still continues to be one of the most efficient, secure ways of storing a lot of data offsite with an air gap. 10 to 15% of people that we have surveyed recently still use tape and have no plans of giving that up. On the other end of the spectrum, cloud is also our focus. Every product we have is cloud native, cloud-based, or cloud-ready. So.
Yeah. And I was going to say, like, on that new end of the market, there's a lot of little competitors coming out that have, you know, relatively niche solutions on there, but they don't have this history of trailing behind there. So we see secondary storage solutions, scale out storage, and cloud storage targets, copy data management, you know, even products that's focused just on the virtualization alone, but they become, I guess you would say, part of that problem that we looked at, that pitfall earlier of different layers that you have to layer in there to get it in. And you know, Arcserve, we're really saying you can cover all that.
Absolutely. And that's our strength, and because it took years to be that centralized and broad. Data protection is very complicated technology in its own technology stack, because you need to kind of understand everything in IT. And it's so broad that it's easy to create something for one specific area of the IT, but to create a broad solution that covers majority of all the angles is much more complicated. Again, it took us years to get it right. And if you take pretty much the entire industry, all the successful players, they are established players.
Yeah, data protection isn't something that you just start to do in a month and can go to people and say you've ironed out all the bugs, right? You know, they're big companies that have data protection solutions. Arcserve's not the only company that's done data protection for 10 years or more, who still mess up, and you know, they still find that one error condition, that one hardware combination that screws things up, or that one software bug. You know, and I'm sure we'll see more Y2K things as we go along. Different names as we go along. You know, people make an assumption. So, just as a little preview before we get into it deeply, could you just give us an Arcserve level arc view of what cloud-ready offerings we're going to talk about here?
So Arcserve Business Continuity Cloud is an overall overarching solution that includes multiple products. Again, all our products are cloud-ready, cloud-native or cloud-based. We have cloud-native solutions like UDP Cloud Direct, direct-to-cloud backup. We also have UDP Cloud Hybrid, is the stage solution designed for disk-to cloud. So it includes deduplication and WAN optimization between the storage nodes. We call recovery point servers. We also have our, of course, proven UDP software that can be deployed in the cloud or can back up to the cloud from on-premises. We have appliances also, which are with the hardware, with the storage, all in one. So it's very easy. Grab it, put it, and it will be backing up. And we also have archiving solution and, of course, high availability solution proven by years in the market that does continuous data protection and failovers with a heartbeat.
So with the appliances, Sam, is that a target where data resides? Is it the engine where the software sits? Take us through the appliance a little bit.
Yeah, appliances are fully integrated. So they have, it is a hardware with the storage, the capacity. Of course, there are capacity options from, I think, from 10 to 80 terabytes of storage capacity already built in. The software is fully pre-configured, so it takes about half an hour to an hour to actually put it in and start and go through the wizard and have it fully configured. And it's, of course, fully licensed, and it also integrates with our cloud service, which is UDP Cloud Hybrid. So the customer gets everything all in one. They can back up. They can even do local disaster recovery if they want to the appliance. And they can do disaster recovery to the cloud.
All right. So now I'm curious, and you rattled through a bunch of products, and I want to slow down and go back and say, you know, let's just consider this, because there's a lot here, and I think I want to be careful. So when we talk about the business continuity cloud, we talked about the pitfalls and the reasons why you want to be in cloud. What do you gain by the business continuity cloud adoption? What's the upside to doing this?
Well, Arcserve Business Continuity Cloud is driven by the unified interface. That unified interface, the cloud console we call it, is allows to manage multiple offerings of ours in one interface in a very functional level. So you would be looking at your IT infrastructure, not our product's UI. For example, if it's backup reports, you will get backup reports regardless of what technology made the backup. Same goes to monitoring. You will see what jobs failed, again, regardless in what operation. And you can schedule jobs, right? And you will select the technology, what technology will be the best. So we give this very scalable and very flexible approach, and that's, again, included with all our cloud services, to just centralize and focus on what customers require, not on what we offer. This kind of integration allows us to give customers a full slew of technology we have in our portfolio and leverage depending on what is criticality of the system, where the system is located, and how quick RTOs and RPOs they're looking at.
Yeah, so you can really tailor this underneath that banner. This is not a one-size-fits-all solution, even though you've got an umbrella marketing there. And I really like the unified management. That's been something that system management people have been trying to tell their customers for a long time, that they've got a single pane of glass. And it sounds like you really can deliver that in data protection across a very complex and heterogeneous environment, which is
absolutely.
So once I've got the cloud, we talked about some of the pitfalls. We talked about data loss. So I'm assuming there are when you talk about reports and things, there's ways to go back and say, hey, here's how we've eliminated data loss. Here's how we've reduced downtime, and prove that out as we go.
Absolutely. What we have is the unique capabilities of reporting on SLA and the backups, right? So there is a technology called assured recovery that actually tests the disaster recovery plans and report on this. And reporting is one of the big boons of any IT professional. I really hate to do that. So any kind of automation is a help in that process. And it actually delivers the RPO actual and RTO actual, or we call RPA and RTA, and delivers this report, say, on schedule daily. And this report can be then put to use as a part of, say, CIO report, right? So the CIO will have full control of what's going on and full certainty, assurances that the data and the systems will fail over in a specified amount of time.
All right, so now I want to go down just a little bit deeper and talk about that. Start with the unified management console, because that's a pretty cool thing. Is this something that I run on premise? Is it something I run in the cloud? Where does this unified console live?
It lives in the cloud, our cloud, Arcserve cloud, that is utilizing data centers across the globe. Yep. So it's very accessible. You can do it, I don't know, from Florida Beach, if it's not destroyed. If it's still alive, it's still there. And you will only get access to what you're supposed to access there, because there is a secure role-based access control But it is also possible to give CIO an access to reports and monitoring only. That's just scalability. Another level of scalability is that it also has multi-tenancy. So MSPs or large or IT in large enterprises could have like a sub-units or customers of theirs served through this interface. So it's very flexible, scalable, and supports all the kinds of data, whether it's on premises, remote locations, in the cloud. And there is a lot of focus on management as well as being in control in general. So in-depth monitoring, in-depth reporting, focus on exceptions, and all these insights that even allow you to predict and forecast how much storage will you use, because there are like trends diagrams and everything. And everything can be configured and scheduled. Biggest advantage, of course, of it being in the cloud is that we on our side will also can put constant development in a cycle of like every 3 weeks, adding new features, adding services, and so on. So it's win-win.
Yeah, I mean, and that's actually you're trying to make a subtle point, but that's actually a big problem. I've talked with people with data protection in the past, data protection solutions, and patching and upgrades when they're on premise fall behind. They just can't keep up. You can't roll them forward. You can't cover all your systems with the patches and upgrades necessary to maintain consistency, much less get it done in the time frame that you really should for either security or just compliance. So the fact that you can do that on the back end as a cloud service all the time and keep it current, so actually a big point, I think, for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And we will be adding a lot of features in coming months.
Yeah, and it just keeps going forward. So then you talked about the fact that looks across everything. Let's go now look at a couple of the pillars, if I can call them pillars. Let's go look at the backup pillar first and talk about what really all do you cover with backup? I mean, there's certainly your x86 systems. You certainly got virtualization with VMware in there. And you know, we were talking a little bit. What else did you guys brought to the table that fits in that backup bucket now for Arcserve?
Well, you already mentioned virtual and x86. We also protect cloud, right?
Oh, okay.
So if your workload is a Microsoft Azure VM or Amazon AWS instance, it's the workload and it has to be protected. Data within has to be protected. So we protect those as well. We protect Office 365.
Yep. Okay.
Because a lot of very critical data and also data that falls under compliance regulations is in Office 365. And we also protect non-x86. We have a big slew of technologies to protect non-x86 systems. Unix, Solaris, FreeBSD, AX, HPUX. As I already mentioned, there is a lot of legacy systems running critical data, holding critical data that also has to be protected.
Yeah, and your Mac is in the list. I know that Dave and I are curious about that most of the time. Like, you can protect our Macs, right? What about if I'm looking at non-VMware virtualization? Do you help people with that as well?
Sure. Yeah, we support with the guest level backup. We support quite a lot. Zen, KVM, Nutanix, and others on the guest level. So pretty much any, and the Hyper-V and vSphere is also, of course, protected with the agentless and the agent-based.
So it's top level thing. And when you're doing the backup, and I almost hate to ask this because I think I know the answer is going to be overwhelming, but what kinds of policies can you support for backup? You know, disk to disk, disk to tape. Obviously, you guys did that in the past. What else have you brought to the table now?
Well, any to any.
Any to any. Okay, that's the easy answer.
We have
asterisk. Don't.
We have so many customers that we saw everything in this world. So we designed everything we do in such way that we don't kind of become rigid in that. And of course, you mentioned this to cloud and this to cloud, two top policies that our customers are using. We have fancy ones, like we have cloud to disk. Quite a number of people are actually asking to back up the cloud to on premises, right?
Cloud to disk, and then cloud to disk to tape, right? If I got that.
Yeah, in that one as well, actually, because it's all unified and very flexible.
Yeah.
So yes, we can do cloud to disk to tape. We can back up Office 365 to tape.
It's awesome. Actually, it's awesome in a lot of ways. So, and then application support, I'm assuming you have the gamut of enterprise applications. You mentioned Office 365 is clearly that cloud-based version of Office 365, but we also have major databases, I assume, Oracle, things like SAP, and
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have Exchange if it's still on premises. We
Yeah.
have SQL servers, including clusters and
Okay.
point-in-time recoveries, all these kind of things. SharePoint Online and on premises. Lotus, Domino, Oracle, Sysbase, Informix, SAP HANA, SAP R3. So the list is long and growing.
All right. So we get things backed up. We can do lots of different backup, anywhere to anywhere backup combinations. And then at this point, if people have backup tools, they also then turn around and buy a DR tool or a replication tool. So it's from a separate vendor sometimes, and layer that on to try to get this end-to-end replication. You guys also have replication and disaster recovery solutions. How does that work with your backup?
Well, we have multiple ways of creating disaster recovery, and it mostly depends on the system criticality, right?
Okay.
With the backup, we have image backup. So if the system is like secondary, we can do bare metal recovery or recovery to a virtual machine. But for more critical systems, we go for faster and shorter RTOs. The shortest RTO is near zero with high availability. So we have a high availability solution.
Okay.
And it constantly replicates the data or the systems or the applications, depending on what level you will decide, and does the heartbeat. And if the original system is down, the replica will take over within almost near zero, let's put it this way. And for business critical system, less critical, tier 2 in a way, there is a few minutes approaches, so-called there are two. One is instant VM. It's like on demand. If you already have a backup, you can just click it and it will run from the backup repository directly. Or you can do a virtual standby, and it's like a preparation. It will keep virtual machine ready to be started. So it's like a on-demand or prepared upfront. So all options. The key point here, we give options of RTO and RPO. Not every system will be highly available, right? But also not all the systems will be secondary. So our customers decide, okay, these systems are the most critical. We need high availability for them. Then these systems will go with instant VM or virtual standby with a few minutes of RTO. And then for secondary systems, we will go a slower pace.
All right. With all these options, backup and disaster recovery, these are both now, just to be clear, because these are both something I can configure if I was running this in the unified management console as a single solution.
Yes. You can manage backup and disaster recovery. So you can back up the entire machine with a very short RPO. And then if the original machine fails, you can start it in the cloud within like a couple of clicks or with automatical failover.
Yeah, because I mean that's where the real problem comes in. People have the different capabilities, but when it comes time to push the button to actually get things to work on the back end, you need it in one place, and you need to be able to get the whole thread unwound and rewound back up on its new spindle and get the thing mounted, right?
Absolutely.
You know, Dave, I'm trying to think. There's one more thing I want to ask. That's about compliance, Sam. Compliance is a whole nother angle to this, right? And where does that mostly enter, and where do your customers mostly concerned with compliance?
Well, there are multiple angles. Interestingly, that GDPR from Europe has thrown an interesting combination monkey wrench into the entire compliance picture and linked it to disaster recovery and even backup. How it did it, there is an article there that requires companies to implement resiliency and disaster recovery strategies for their systems to be compliant.
You have to be compliant. You have to be able to recover it, right? You have to be,
right.
They need to make Europe bigger, I think, is what they need to do. Is it's not, some of those European countries are kind of small to be truly disaster proof, but let them figure that out. But compliance, I mean, compliance really comes in mostly at the level of email. I mean, you hear a lot in that, right? So that's a big part of when you said you could back up the Office 365 and Exchange on site. Is there anything more we should know about email compliance in this discussion?
Well, absolutely. Email archiving is something we see growing really, really quickly. The reason for that is not just GDPR, other regulations that require to provide copies of data within certain stipulated amount of time, or you become non-compliant. And GDPR, as you know, provides for from at least 20 million euro fines for being non-compliant with the requests from European citizens. And email archiving is also a very important piece of data protection. It also requires to be an archiving specific, meaning it has to pick up the emails the way they were at the moment when they were sent or received, right? And that's what our solution provides. It intercepts and copies the emails the way they were sent or received. And then another angle for archiving, of course, to satisfy those compliance requests, you need to be able to quickly find everything related to a specific person or specific word or project or something like this. And that's exactly what our solution provides: a full, complete search, including contents of attachments throughout your entire email database.
And these can, I mean, when we step back and a lot of what you're talking about isn't simply single country anymore either. A lot of this is global distributed, global nationals, and they have fairly complex schemes for keeping data patriated, keeping it within regional authorities, but at the same time, having to still do these things where they can search and find stuff. So again, just to be clear, this comes back to that same console, right? That I can do this in that unified management console.
You can do it in the cloud console.
Yeah.
It's not a part of the Arcserve Business Continuity Cloud Console yet.
Okay.
It's something on our roadmap, but the console will be in the cloud.
All right. So at least I can get to it from my Florida beach when nothing else is there. That's awesome. Cool. I think I've explored a lot of things about Continuity Cloud. Dave, you have any?
Well, we've got some questions from the audience, Sam.
Awesome.
Do you want to take some audience questions?
Sure.
Okay, so it has a question about regular archiving, not so much email archiving, but just sort of tiering data off by policy of age or by file type. Does the system support that?
We do have an file archiving solution as part of our Arcserve backup, our stalwart. And that solution can archive your files based on the policies that you define. It can upload them to disk or even to tape, and you pick them up whenever you require. So yes, we have that solution.
Great. There's a question that came in. I think you touched on it earlier, Sam, but the question has to do with what percentage of your customers use tape? How prevalent are you seeing tape today?
We have 10 to 15%, depending on the region. 10 to 15% are still using tape and have no plans of giving that up. And with the new LTO 8 and the LTO 9 coming up, it seems no end. I remember 10 years ago, I was sitting on another webcast like this and saying, yeah, the tape is pretty much dead. Well, I have to admit it wasn't true. It's definitely not a prevailing way to back up like it was in 1990s, but it is still valid. It has its niche, and it will continue to be, especially in sensitive environments, especially in environments with a lot of data.
Yeah. Okay, great. A question came in about MSPs. If this is sort of an MSP sort of, if it could be deployed or managed by an MSP, if you guys support a network of MSPs.
Absolutely. We have a lot of MSPs working with us, and we are growing this segment of our business. And the console that we were talking about with Mike and you, it supports MSPs and multi-tiering. So MSPs can come to us and start their business of serving their customers right away. They can set up all the co-branding, and they can change the service name, make the colors and logos and everything. And then provide additional value-added services like monitoring how the backup and the storage is running, what are the issues, solve the issues for customers, and even log into their interface, kind of impersonating the customers directly. So a lot of flexibility we deliver to MSPs as well.
Okay, great. So here's another question that came in, Sam. This may be a little bit unique. You did mention that you guys support sort of any-to-any kind of, target to source. And someone is asking about cloud to cloud. If you guys see any of that, where one might back up from one cloud to another, or multi-cloud support.
Well, absolutely. We are seeing that. A lot of companies are looking to back up their clouds across the clouds. So they don't want to bring it on premises necessarily. And what we do, we have our own clouds. We have customers backing up, say, Azure or Amazon or Office 365 to our cloud or across. And yes, they do back up Amazon to Azure and Azure to Amazon.
Okay.
Multi-cloud world. It's going to be a multi-cloud world, right?
Yeah. Add even more heterogeneity. Okay, so we're just about out of time. You guys want to, any final thoughts, or you think we've covered it? You want to wrap up and let everybody go? What do you think?
Absolutely. I'll start first if you don't
Okay.
mind. So the summary of this entire Pitfall webinar for me would be: think about your data as a whole, wherever it is. Think about your systems and workloads and protect them equally. Be in control of your data protection and disaster recovery. Don't assume that your cloud vendor or a virtualization vendor will do everything for you. It's your data and you own it. And Arcserve can help you having that control and protect the data wherever it is.
Okay. I could hardly top that, Sam. So that's a great thing. So just to be, Arcserve is now a cloud company. That's what we should be thinking when we go away from it, right? Business continuity cloud, and you guys are a cloud company. Even though your feet are still tangled up and taped down there somewhere, your head is in the clouds, and you guys can do the whole range of stuff. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, head on the clouds, feet firmly on the ground.
Firmly on the ground.
All right. Well, very good. Sam Rogan with Arcserve, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today. I'd love to have you back. And Mike, thank you for coming back again. Mike Matchett with Small World Big Data. And thank you for watching. If for any reason you want to check out the on-demand version, that will be posted here shortly at truthandit.com. We'll be sending out the link to everyone. On behalf of Sam Rogan with Arcserve and Mike Matchett with Small World Big Data, I'm Dave Littman from Truth and IT. Thanks again, and make it a great day.